Welcome to In Off the VAR, your weekly ref update brought to you by Orta No Better podcast. I'm joined today by Orta No Better regular Luke and soon to be regular Jimmy, the ref. How you doing, Jimmy? How you doing, Luke?
Not too bad, gentlemen.
Good, thanks.
Good stuff. Now, Jimmy, we're going to cover two games today, but because the Palace game was last week and it was fairly incident-free, would you just give us a quick rundown on what you thought how the ref went during the Palace game, and we'll move swiftly on to last night's game then.
Andrew Marner was the referee appointed to that game. I thought overall he had a very, very good game. He was very lenient, to players, and that he could have issued cards early on in the game. He decided not to. He applied what referees normally call the 18th law, which is common sense. There's 17 laws in the game of football, but we always say there's 18 common sense, and he certainly applied the 18th law in that game. I think he's a very good referee, Andrew Marner. For me, he didn't do anything wrong. There was no issues that you could fault him on. And I'd say after the game was over, when the observer went into the dressing room to speak to the officials, it was happy all around. I think everyone would have been happy with his performance. Certainly, he would be very pleased himself with the way he handled the game.
Yeah, that's all right. It seemed like he did quite well throughout the game. There was no contentious issues that I would have thought of to maybe bring up or anything like that. What about yourself, Luke?
No, not from what I can remember. As you say, it was a week or so ago. But I think it's easier to not criticise a ref after a good performance. I think that was our strongest performance of the season. So to try and find faults for the ref would be a little bit unjustified, I think. Yeah. But yeah, what score would you have given Mariner on that, Jimmy?
I'd have given him 8.4. 8.4. That's the normal. That's up there. The most you give is 9.9, but 8.4, 8.5, and all that. But I always remember a manager of the local team when they had a team in what they called the A League. It was equivalent to your National League. And a appointed referee from, I think he was from a place called Athlone, way outside our county. And the local team were beaten 4-0 on the night. And I spoke to the manager, who could be very, very vocal, at matches about referees. And I asked him, what did he think about the referee? And he gave me a reply, which I still think about today. He didn't even know he was in the ground. And that speaks volumes for the ways that lad handled the game. It wasn't all about him. He was there to do a job, and he did it to the best of his ability. And he wasn't the focal point at any time during the game. And you could say that, Marner the other night, the Palace game, it was about the players, the team was on the pitch, and it certainly wasn't about him.
Good, a fair assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of his best games that I've seen him ref, to be fair. And he's done a few of ours already, But we'll move on now to the Arsenal game last night, Jimmy. The first half, what did you make of? Well, we won't go into the goals we conceded just yet. We'll try and fixate on the ref for a moment, and then we'll move on to what happened defensively and whatnot. How do you think he handled the first half, Jimmy, considering how it went?
I thought Stuart Atwell did very well. The only thing I would fault him for was the penalty that he awarded, and it was advised by Michael Oliver to go and look at the monitor. And that tells me that he was in a very, very poor position when he gave that decision, that he was in a bad position, because certainly, now, again, like a referee on the pitch don't have, the cameras flashing straight away, so he's got to make a quick decision. It's instinct. It appeared as from the angle that he was coming at that it was a foul, but certainly, if you're looking at it from the television, the angle that we had, it wasn't a foul. Both players kind of leaned into one another. You're entitled to use your shoulder and that, but the Arsenal player went down too cheaply for me on that. And in fairness to Stuart Atwell, he had the courage to go and look at the monitor and come back and no, because I don't know this or not. He doesn't have to look at the monitor. He doesn't have to take advice from VAR. He can go with his own instinct and he can say, penalty, there's no need for me to look at the monitor. The second penalty that he gave, he was 100% correct. He was in a good position for it. An old Irish saying, a blind man and a galloping horse. It certainly wouldn't have, because it was a blatant foul. But in fairness to him, I thought overall he handled the game very well. His cards were warranted when there was no problem with me in the way that he distributed cards, and that it was at times I thought maybe his positioning, wasn't what it should have been for a Premiership referee. He was very fortunate and he was very lucky in many respects to get away with his position in that, because you run diagonals when you have officials, and now going back some years, and that you, along with the two assistant referees, you also have the fourth official who can instruct referees of an incident behind his back, or either the officials haven't picked up on that. So for me, with that kind of confidence going into a game, and he just seemed to get his positioning wrong on quite a few occasions. But I think overall, he didn't do very, very much wrong. I thought he was fairly good. If I was to mark him up, I'd give him a 0.2.
Right, sorry, Luke.
Just going back to what you said there, Jimmy, about he doesn't have to. I'm quite surprised that, given VAR's introduction and their intervention, that he doesn't have to go and look at it, and that is news to me. I thought that he was advised to go look, and they sort of have to go look and make a decision off the television. I have to say as well that when I first saw it, I didn't think it wasn't a penalty, but I thought it was a soft penalty. So I can see why Mariner gave it on the first look, especially when he's down at field level as well. However, when you quite rightly say, at least he had the bollocks then to go back and actually say, look, I've made a clear and obvious mistake here. It was already on his way down. It's no penalty.
But first of all, VAR is there to advise and help referees, and certainly the offside, it has created more issues than it should when it comes to the offside law. But the referee does not have to. His job is the 4 lines, inside the 4 lines. That's his job. His duty is to implement the laws of the game and to protect the players, and that he can take advice from VAR, but he doesn't have to act on it. They can issue all the instructions, but he does not have to act on it. He can say that he's quite happy with the decision he has made. Now, if you look at the other codes of football that have VAR, rugby was the first to bring it in, and we've seen incidents over the weekend where, last week an Irish player was sent off. We had a Scottish player sent off this weekend because of incident that the referee was advised to look at. It's totally different, their rules. They have no choice but to take instructions from the video referees. On soccer, it's down to the referee. He does not have to take directions from VAR. He can take advice if he wants, and he can look at the monitor. And I give him credit for going over and having looked at the monitor and deciding that no, this was no penalty.
Fair point.
Just in relation to penalties, Jimmy, we had a discussion in the podcast group there yesterday about Bamford's claim for a penalty. Now, we were kind of under the impression anywhere else on the pitch that's a penalty or a free kick. How come they didn't, even review it or even have a replay of it if it's a free kick anywhere else on the pitch, like?
Well, again, that's one of the things that gets up my nose, certainly, as regards to an issue that's created inside the box, and the same incident occurs outside. It's a free kick outside, and it's not a free kick inside. But the difference, Bamford wasn't denying goal scoring opportunity in that particular incident.
Right.
So therefore, it would be a pretty soft penalty. It would be like it was a foul. You can give an indirect free kick inside the area. You certainly could have been an indirect free kick for it. The only direct free kick you give inside the penalty area is a penalty.
Yeah.
But it would have been very, very soft and wrong in my position. Yes, outside where there's no chance of scoring a goal if it's in the middle of the park or wherever, then it's a free kick and a caution and that. And it's unfortunate because, for me, if a foul is committed, irrespective of what part of the pitch, it's a foul and it should be penalised and punished accordingly. But referees take a view that, you know, with the pulling and dragging that's going on in the penalty box from set pieces and that, games would be won on penalties. You know, you could have 7 or 8 penalties a match for either side just to try the game.
It just
sorry, Karl. Go ahead, mate. Sorry. No, you're all right. Go ahead.
It struck me as kind of like we were talking about inconsistency with some refs, you know, a couple of weeks ago, Jimmy, and we were kind of like, if it is a free kick elsewhere on the pitch, like you said, it should be punishable. But if it's a case that those 2 players didn't play the ball, they played the player, and that's kind of what has my backup about it, is that they made no effort to play the ball. Granted, they can shadow the ball or whatever, but they didn't make any effort to play the ball. It was
almost obstruction, wasn't it? They were almost obstructing him from getting near the ball rather than an actual sort of
and that's why I think, I think it was...
Obstruction is not a direct free kick. Obstruction is an indirect free kick, first and foremost, and that. And it's, you know, there is a certain amount of consistency with regards to decision making that for referees at every level of football, whether it be at lower leagues and Premiership. But in an incident like that, it'd be wrong to give a penalty, because that type of issue goes on week in, week out. And for me, it would take away from the game, you know, if you were to give soft penalties like that, because players would play for, you know, I just don't see it working. Yes, when it's outside the area and that, and you're not denying an obvious goal scoring chance, you're punishing the player for committing a foul. But inside the box, you know, you give a penalty for obstruction when it's just a yellow card offence. You know, you can't. Obstruction is not a direct free kick.
Well, should they start punishing those particular incidents with indirect free kicks and a booking, rather than kind of going straight for a penalty? You can go, right, okay, it's not a clear and obvious foul where he's going to stop him scoring, but it is a foul nonetheless, and there's an indirect free kick and a booking. Like,
again, I did say this to you a couple of weeks back. It's the legislators, for some unknown reason, tweak the laws every season and that. And some years back, they told the referees to get tough with regards to set pieces, corner kicks, pulling and dragging on players. That was a penalty. Now, pulling and dragging, when you put your hands on the player and you pull them to the ground, if it's inside the area, it is a penalty, no question about it. The first referee to implement it was our friend Mike Dean. He had no problem. He put it the spot. All of a sudden, the legislators, referee, let the game flow a little bit first. That was a soft penalty. So it's down to the legislators and the pressure that they're putting on the officials. The officials are acting within the confines of the law, but there's other pressure put on by the legislators telling them that this is the way they want it. And in some cases, I've seen it, you know, in some cases, these fellas never kicked a ball in their lives.
Yeah.
You know, that's the strange thing about it. A lot of these people never, I mean, my own organisation, the Football Association of Ireland, there's people involved in it. I'd say if you were to look for the oldest people in the world, you'd find them in the halls of Dublin. I'd say they could range from 150 to 200 years. That long happened.
All
right, yeah. Have you got anything you want to add there, Luke?
No, not really. Fair assessment. I don't think Mariner was appalling. I think he showed some real steel to actually overturn the initial decision that he'd made to give him that first penalty.
Luke, that was Atwell that was refereeing that game.
Atwell, Atwell.
He had the courage to do it, and it takes. I always remember myself some years back. It was Youths Cup final, famous team in Ireland, Shamrock Rovers. Karl would know all about them, and I gave a penalty against them. Now, I was in a very poor position, but the problem I had was the assistant referee. The ways he put the flag up, the ball had gone out over the end line. The ways he put the flag up, because some years back, a referee, if the assistant referee was given a penalty, he would put the flag across his chest just to indicate to the referee that it was a penalty. Now, the referee would not go over and discuss it with him as to what was the reason for it, unless there was a card. He'd indicate when that a card had to be issued as well. But the change that ways of assistant referees notifying the referee, because of course they have the ear monitor now and that. But I remember the assistant referee, it was the way he was holding the flag, and I pointed to the penalty spot. And, you know, I thought, have I done wrong here? Because, you know, there was astonishment even on the team I gave the penalty to. They weren't expecting it either. But it did look from the angle that I was coming at that it was a penalty. So I went over and I confronted the assistant referee. And he says, no, what actually happened, there was a bee, because he was sweating, and the bee was going around him and that, and he put the flag across his face. You know, he didn't know why I was given the penalty. I just changed my decision, and that was it. You know, we all had a good laugh over it. But, you know, it's hard enough to be referees, but when you have legislators who, you know, every season, because of backlash from fans and soccer pundits and that, and now we have seen it with the offside law, the ways that have started to, you're going to see a different offside law come in for the new season, 21-22 season. It'll be a complete change. I mean, there's a couple of decisions that are just absolutely mind-boggling. If you look at the Liverpool incident, forget our own incident with Bamford. If you look at the Liverpool incident, it was absolutely horrendous. There was an incident in the game tonight. I don't know whether you've seen it or not. And with all the modern technology, from once the ball is touched by the free taker, that player can run to an offside. It doesn't have to. At one time, it had to. What was known as, it would have to travel its own circumference. It would have to turn. But now, from once a player touches the ball, a player can run, and what would appear to any normal person, he's in an offside position. But from once the ball is touched, he is not. The goal was overruled because VAR could not determine whether the ball was touched.
That's ridiculous.
And that is one. It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, you know, you wouldn't be old enough to remember this, but I always remember an incident. I think it was Derby County actually that won the title back in the early 70s. I think they were away. The shock when they were told that they won the title. There was an incident involving an offside decision that went against Leeds. I think it was Wolverhampton Wanderers who were playing, and all they needed was a win to win the title, and they would have won it. But for an absolute horrendous decision. Now, going back in those days, it didn't make a bit of difference where you were in the pitch. If you were offside, and that was the law at the time. And there's a player on one side of the pitch. He was about 4 or 5 yards offside. Sister never put the flag up. The referee could clearly see it and waved to play on. There was ructions after it. There was a couple of arrests made. And the people, it's strange enough, the people that was arrested on that day weren't your normal teenager that fucking since people, some elderly men that was arrested over it. So, you know, over the years, they've tried to change the laws. Now, do you know who the biggest culprits for with regards to wanting the change in the laws of the game is the home countries. They dictate to UEFA and FIFA. Yeah, Northern Ireland, not the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. They actually dictate any change that comes in the laws of the game to UEFA and FIFA.
Is that why that English ref is on the board for UEFA? Is it? What's his name? Yeah. Is it David Ellery? Is it?
Yeah, I remember him.
Is he like a representative? Yeah.
Wow.
He represents the English on the board. We have every country has someone. From a friend of mine, John Ward, is our representative here on it. But the English and the Welsh and the Scottish and the Northern, they come up with a change in a law that might be totally repugnant to the game, FIFA would nearly have to go along with it, because this part of the contract that was done when international football was being set up, because those were the people that actually set it up, the international game and that, and they more or less wrote the book on the laws of the game. So no one has ever changed. Now UEFA can introduce laws and tweak them whichever ways they want, but there's never a disagreement or an argument. They work together in fairness to them. But the unfortunate thing about, as I said, a lot of those people that does this type of thing, some of them never even kicked a ball in their lives and wouldn't know what a football looks like, other than they have seen it on television.
Well, I think that's part of the problem with the refereeing and how they're using VAR at the moment. I think they should have ex-professional footballers in the VAR room, and they should be training ex-professional footballers as referees, I think. And I think that's the way you stamp out all this ridiculousness that's going on sometimes, I think.
I don't know how that works, because I always remember a lad, I got into refereeing an ex-footballer here, and he played, he refereed as he played. He'd break your leg. First time I went to see him play, I said to him in the dressing room, he normally would not go near a referee at halftime, but I had to go in. I felt compelled to go in from and say, "You've got cards in your pocket, use them, take them out."
Too lenient.
3 games. 3 games, Luke, and he was gone. I said, "No, you're not suitable for it." So ex-footballers don't make good referees, I can tell you that.
Okay. We go with that then. Maybe just leave them in the VAR room.
Leave them in the bar.
Yeah. Leave them in there. So I appreciate all that, Jimmy, there now tonight. So what did you in the end, what did you score the referee? Was it 8.2 you gave him?
8.2 I give Stuart. I thought he did well on that. As I said to you, referees, most of them go out, they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be noticed, they don't like the publicity. There's only one referee I know that courts publicity and that, and he loves it. I think I'm talking about Mike Dean, I just speak about him. But by and large, the referees just want to go do a job, get on. They don't want to bring that kind of adverse publicity on themselves or their families and that, and that's what they're about. But unfortunately, you will get the odds bad apple.
Just on Mike Dean, Jimmy, there's obviously been some comments recently in the press which no human should be sort of targeted with or anything about his family and stuff. He actually withdrew from refereeing for was it the weekend just gone, on the weekend before?
This weekend,
This weekend, following threats and whatnot. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were around that. Obviously, any human being can't condone anything like that. It's a game of football at the end of the day, and it's really, really unfair that even Mike Dean, as elaborate as he is, should be subject to something as dire and pathetic as that.
No, he shouldn't be subject to that, and I was disgusted when I heard about the comments. And I don't know Mike Dean personally, but I know where he comes from. My late wife came from his part of the world. He comes across as a very decent, very nice fellow, Tranmere Rovers support. But the incident, that particular week, there was 2 incidents. In 17 seconds into the Southampton-Manchester United game, he sent a player off, which was rescinded. The red card was rescinded the next day.
That's right.
The incident with West Ham, the player that went down, for me, was the player that should have been punished in that incident.
Yeah.
If that card was being rescinded, that player that went down should have been punished. And that's an issue that I have. I certainly, now, the referee can't, say you haven't got a head injury, your jaw's not sore, whatever, or someone brushes past you. It's not his job. But when VAR looks at an incident like that where there's no contact as such, your arm is just brushed across someone's face and they go down like that, trying to get a penalty or whatever, then, you have to take specific action. That player has to be dealt with. And I think that's an issue that's coming up pretty soon with UEFA and FIFA, that they're going to look at that type of thing. And hopefully it'll stamp out a lot of what's going on.
You see,
But
that's
overall,
it. Like if you do target players like that, Jimmy, I think you're going to see an awful lot of play acting just disappear overnight. I think, like, because they won't be as quick to act up if they know, like that incident with the West Ham player and Mitrovic. It was like,
absolutely.
If Mitrovic knew he was going to get retrospectively punished, he probably wouldn't have done anything.
In rugby league, for instance, if they have a head injury, they have to go for a HIA, which is head injury assessment, and they have to have that full assessment while they're replaced by a substitute or somebody else can come on the pitch in their place for. I think the HIA takes place over a 10-minute period. But if that team knew that they were going to lose potentially one of their star players that's rolling around on the floor saying they've hurt themselves, if they were going to lose them for 10-minute assessment, would that help? Do you think?
Well, the problem there, Luke, is now in rugby they have an independent doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the team coach. There's an independent doctor that assesses head injuries and that, because we can have, prior to allowing substitutes for head injuries, and that there was a lot of play acting going on with head injuries and that in rugby. Now, you would have to have the same situation in the game of soccer, where it would be an independent doctor that would carry out a head injury assessment, and that acting on his report could determine the outcome of what punishment could be allocated to the player, going down looking to circumvent the laws of the game for his own benefit and his team's benefit. That's an issue that's going to be looked at now. Now, whether they're going to use their own doctors or not, I don't know. But I do know that it's going to be looked at, that this type of play acting is going to be stamped out.
Perfect.
Right.
So please God, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to eradicate that kind of play acting from the game now, to be fair. Like, it'd get the flow of the game going properly again and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Go on.
If you have incidents like we see with certain players, you've only got to touch them and they roll over, and what type of contact are you allowed? You know, it's a contact sport. You know, if you take our national sport is, Gaelic football, someone's head can be hanging off before a referee will take action. You know, they can be dragged. You know, I mean, hurling is probably one of the most dangerous sports. Field sports in the world, and there's never ever an issue with referees. You never hear a referee being talked about or criticised in a game of hurling, and yet it's probably the most dangerous field sport in the world.
Well, let's be honest. Look, if it was a case that the referee was going to get turned on, he's getting turned on by 30-odd lads with sticks. You know what I mean? He's not going to try and bark up the wrong tree against 30 lads with sticks and potentially another 15 on the bench. Like,
I did speak to a chap when I was working in the public service. He refereed 2 hurling finals, and the question about them is the level of fitness they have, because the pitch is much longer and that. And he more or less said the same thing as you did, Karl. You're not going to give out to someone, when you have 4 or 5 Irish teammates holding the hurleys in their hand.
It's madness.
You smile, you get a big smile and you deal with it like. But it is a very dangerous sport. But you never see them rolling over when they get injured or. It's mind-boggling when you see a soccer player. He just gets a little tap and he's down and he's rolling over. I seen one incident with Jack Grealish. I'd say if it was in the Olympic Games in the high jump, he'd probably have got a bronze medal anyways. He was that high. And the other thing about it, he caught that when he went down, he was holding the wrong damn leg.
It's not the first time he's done that all season. Like, it's crazy stuff. And referees are still letting him get away with it. But again, it's like you were saying, Jimmy, if they punished him.
Before we finish this up, there was a character here, you might remember him, George Laddie.
No.
I don't know whether you ever remember him or not, Karl. Well, George was a gentleman. He was very much involved in the cycling club, but he was also, when I was in the boxing club, he was involved in the boxing club. And we were at a tournament up in Donegal, some years back, quite a number of years back. And George got into the ring. He looked the part, all dressed up. And referee called them together when the bell went. The touch gloves. George went down on one knee. And the referee didn't know what to do about it. And so I went over and he said to George, he says, he didn't hit you. I know, he says, but why delay the consequences? He says, do your job, count me out. That's a fact. That is a fact. So the inevitable is coming, he says. You count out. That is the fact. And I know that's, look, anyone would tell you that story. You know, he was such a character that, you know, I'm going to be put down. But he says, why delay the inevitable? Just carry on counting. And he never boxed again after that.
He probably wasn't allowed to.
No, yeah,
that's brilliant, Jimmy.
I have to say.
Yeah. Look, Jimmy, thanks very much for your time again. Now this week we'll finish up, and what we'll do is I'll give you a shout for a review of the referee for the Wolverhampton game on Friday, and see how you get on and see what you think of that. Yeah, sound as a pound. Luke, thanks very much for coming on again as well today.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again, Jimmy.
Have a good evening.